a rumor in Ondo, and the Honorable Minister has clearly said that there is no Ebola in Abuja, no Ebola in Enugu, no Ebola in Calabar as is being speculated. And therefore, we can continue to ride on those positive trends. The other worrying is the development in the crisis in Bama area. Now, what happened is that there is a barracks, it's called Kur Mohammed Barracks in Bama, and the insurgents from their forays in Goza were trying to take up that barracks as a measure to increase their armament. There's also a Mopol, mobile police station, Mopol 15, also in Bama. So what the Nigerian soldiers and the security agency did was to cut off the forays of the insurgents to that place. But there have been conflicting reports. Some are saying that Bama has been taken. The deputy governor who was in charge has said that Bama has not been taken. The governor who returned and also the security agencies are saying that Bama has not been taken. Those who are claiming Bama has been taken are citing Reuters report. Among them is, I think, a senator who represents that Bama area. But be that as it may, the fear of the insurgents had led to exodus of people from the village Bama, and that is why we now have about 26,000 of them in Maiduguri. In fact, they are camped at the NYSC camp, and the National Emergency Agency is up and doing and taking care of that. The other worrying one is the crisis in Nasarawa. You recall yesterday we mentioned about security arrangement with traditional rulers and security agencies to try and curb it. It's sad that even before this morning now, there are reports of another forays between Egon and Fulani youths. And the concern there from the security report yesterday is that an initiative must be put ahead seriously to limit the militant ethnic groups, particularly limit the extent to which they get arms, find out how they get arms and cut off the arms supply. But most importantly, I think the initiative is positive, and if we can get the traditional rulers and the state government to get the various ethnic groups to solve the issue, then we will have a limit to the extent to which we have clashes between the Ego, the Fulani, the Mada, the Alagu, and all of them that are giving us a lot of unrest. The other trading story is the issue of the NFF, Nigeria Football Federation. FIFA has said that it recognizes the executive that was in place on 25th of August, which by implication meant that the election that was purportedly done on 26th is not recognized. And FIFA has directed that the NFF should get its act in order. Otherwise, by the 8th of this month, in 4 days' time, we might be going under another suspension. And therefore, it is instructive that we should call on the parties that are at daggers drawn. They should put their altruism at the highest level. Nigeria is greater than all of us. They should not forget that even by this weekend, the Super Eagles are having a match against the Red Devils of Congo. And in another 2 weeks or 3 weeks, there's another match pending. And if this suspension comes, it is going to affect our youths who potentially...
Well, Bayo, it was a topic we discussed extensively with the Minister of Sports and other stakeholders on Tuesday. We do hope that they will resolve their crisis. But there's an important subject. I think that we have all been very reluctant to discuss the conduct of the late Dr. Enwemo, who treated the ECOWAS official who sneaked in from Lagos into Port Harcourt. Yes. But there are obvious lessons to learn from his conduct. Part of the reluctance in discussing his behavior obviously had to do with the fact that healthcare givers, face a great deal of risk, and it's a major challenge, for them to be facing risk and then to be criticized. But unfortunately, we all can see the consequences of his conduct already. Port Harcourt, is now, as it were, categorized as one of the places where you had Ebola. He's passed on, and other persons who came in contact with him are already positive.
It's diametrically opposite to the conduct of Dr. Adadevo. Yes. She immediately raised the alarm that there is Ebola in the nation, and it went a long way to helping us contain the issue. this other diplomat sneaked into Port Harcourt after contact, hoping that he could be secretly treated. And the doctor apparently agreed, and look at the consequences that it has.
Looking at the consequences, gentlemen, I'm afraid I have to come in here again. Just to interrupt Mr. Toyibi, thank you. It's been nice having you again to come to review.
Thank you for having me.
Tomorrow is Friday.
Yes.
I look forward to having you.
I look forward to that.
All right. You're watching Good Morning Nigeria, and moving on now, the Minister of Interior, Comrade Abba Moro, was on Good Morning Nigeria some time ago to look at the state of Nigeria prisons and of course, and what can be done to decongest the prisons and sanitize the system. Now, one of the fallout of that discussion was the need to look at the Nigeria criminal system and, of course, examine the loopholes to see if there is need for reform or review. And that is the prompt for our discussion on the criminal justice system this morning on Good Morning Nigeria. And in this report, Gideon Ifade gives us an insight into what the criminal justice system is like.
The criminal justice system of any country stands on tripod of investigation, trial, and correction. Each of these is handled by constitutionally established agency. Investigation is by the police or any prosecutory agency. Trial is by the court, and corrective is by the prisons. The importance of criminal justice to the smooth running of any society cannot be overemphasized. An effective criminal justice system is regarded by many as fundamental to the maintenance of law and order. However, most Nigerians seem to be raising concern over the effectiveness of the country's justice system due to the number of inconclusive prosecution of cases, congestion in the prisons with more than 3/4 of the inmates awaiting trials for decades, and investigations by the police which may run into years while the suspects remain in prison custody. These are all what public affairs analysts considered as factors contributing to poor dispensation of justice in the country.
There are different factors that bedevil the system, ranging from corruption to poverty to insincerity to inability of policymakers to follow through on policies that stem from some of these laws. So if you ask me, I will not say it is difficult. You know, the system itself is not difficult if the administrators of the system, you know, will follow the law to its letter.
The criminal justice system is considered by legal experts as ineffective and no longer fit in fulfilling its purposes, and therefore needs to be reformed. Many of the provisions of the law are said to be outdated and inadequate for successful prosecution of complex cases. And because criminal justice addresses behavioral issues, the analysts say the system must be dynamic and proactive.
Most of the acts are horribly passed. So they do not address some real issues that should be considered to aid the administration of justice.
Nigerian criminal justice system still enjoys the confidence of the people, even if not all of them. For example, the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime reports that the system has recorded a significant improvement in all aspects of justice delivery. The success of any trial, as noted by the legal experts, is based on the quality of investigation done by the police or the prosecuting agency. Well-informed and educated prosecuting officers are recommended to handle cases as against what is presently obtained.
Police should still be prosecuting matter. Now, they should have a well-standard legal department in police, where lawyers, possibly from the Office of Attorney General, so the issue of waiting for DPP's advice to prosecute a matter will not arise.
The court only acts only on facts and evidence before it. So if evidence is not placed before the court, for example, to acquit the accused person, then he cannot get judgment acquitting him. He will have to get conviction, you know, vice versa. So I don't think that the quality of, I don't think that the court, you know, should receive the blame for the decisions it reaches.
Say provision for speedy trial, restriction on number of interval of adjournments, as well as electronic recording of trials will go a long way in reducing the problems associated with criminal justice system in Nigeria.
Okay, thank you there, Jide, for the background. Joining us now is Mr. Joseph Daudu, Senior Advocate of Nigeria. Lord Senior Advocate, welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Good morning, Nigeria.
Okay, let's start from the basics for the benefit of our viewers. When we say criminal justice system, we are referring to a system that has many parts. What are the attributes of our criminal justice system? What does it entail?
Criminal justice is the whole gamut of what promotes the system, starting from pre-trial to the trial and possible conviction and sentence of somebody who has committed an offense. Therefore, it involves how you prevent a crime and how a crime is investigated, and also the trial, and again other issues that come up, conviction and sentence. So that's, for example, what.
Well, obviously, that's, as you said, that captures it, and it involves the entire range of maintenance of law and order, policing, for instance, arrest, arraignment, trial, conviction, sentencing, and imprisonment. That's the entire gamut of the Nigerian criminal justice system. The question that then follows is this: what, in your opinion, is wrong with our criminal justice system to such an extent that it is almost a notorious fact that the system is sluggish in giving justice to those who deserve justice?
Yeah, there are quite a number of things wrong with the criminal justice system. The first is that the enabling laws are antiquated. They are obsolete. That means some of them date back as far back as 1900, and they've been there for about 114 years. For example, the criminal code, the most recent may even be some of the penal code. So that accounts for it. Secondly is, and the most important, is the apprehension of criminals. For you to have an effective criminal justice system, you must be in a position to ensure that criminals are apprehended quickly. But you find that the system is such, ranging from how the police stations are designed, how complaints are received, how people are investigated, all contribute to the sluggishness of the system. Then you go to the court system, and you find that matters of bail, where you keep awaiting trial persons, if you keep them together with prisoners, the procedure for the trial, is it fast enough to ensure that you get justice? And at the end of the day, when you come to sentencing, you have that we don't have a formula for sentencing. Do the punishments fit the offenses? And at the end of the day also, do you have enough prisons to keep the teeming population of prisoners?
Let me quickly ask a layman's question. Usually we hear of a delay in justice, dispensation of justice. It starts from the point where someone is suspected of committing a crime, and then the arrest and all that. This process, ordinarily, how long? What is the time frame for the start of a prosecution and then the conclusion? How long should it take ordinarily?
Well, prosecution effectively, depending on if it's a summary trial offense, ranging from a week to 2 weeks, you shouldn't take too much. That's why you have courts of summary jurisdiction. For very serious offenses, say maybe murder, armed robbery, terrorism, you're talking of a period of, say, 9 months to about 18 months. That should effectively, from the point the matter is reported to the police to when there is conviction or acquittal, shouldn't exceed 18 months.
Well, the Leland Senior Advocate, there's no doubt about it that investigation is crucial to the development of the case file, to use a layman's language, the so-called proofs of evidence, as you would say in criminal law. And opinions have been expressed as to the inadequacy of investigation in the first instance, and also the almost frequent instances of investigation being compromised. How do we deal with that initial aspect? Because if the proof of evidence is faulty, as you very well know, then getting justice for a particular offense, it could well be a far-fetched endeavor.
You see, we can put it like this: which comes first? Are we the chicken or the egg, or are we putting the cat before the horse? You need to have done a thorough forensic investigation before you can have a semblance of a successful trial. There's no point gathering statements of people and going to court and then having an average lawyer knock everything off. First of all, we do not have what we call a template for proper investigation. Or if we have, it is not being put into force. First, you do notice in this country, if a crime is said to occur at a point, there is no crime scene management. You don't have the police cordon off and assess the evidence from which to start the investigation. Everybody has access to the crime scene. That in itself has ensured that there will be no proper investigation. Secondly, are basic things like fingerprinting, like taking photographs of the scene or or anybody's that are lying there. Thirdly, are stage-by-stage investigations that should be done. What you get here is you are asked at the police station, who do you suspect has committed the offense? That is the very wrong way. And so when these cases get to court, especially cases that involve fraud, financial practices and the rest of them, you find that it's so easy to defend and get the people off because no investigation or proper investigation has been done. So you are quite right when you say that that is the bane of the criminal justice system. People must address this. You cannot provide for it in statute. These are policing methods, and it is strictly within the four walls of those who apprehend criminals. I've always had a problem with the fact that the Constitution says there will be one police force. This is a federation, and we need to have, technically we have more than one police force. The EFCC, as far as I'm concerned, is a police force. The ICPC is a police force. NDLEA is a police force. We need to recognize the fact that these agencies exist. But what you need to do, like the Americans have done, is to coordinate them and to have them work with known templates. If it's the NDLEA going into a scene, it cordons off the place and starts investigation on a step-by-step basis. And I think our people know the theory, but it's the inability to practicalize it that is the issue.
Okay, let's quickly look at the whole process. You do agree that there is a problem with the criminal system as it is right now?
Serious problem.
Serious problem. Now let us look at the role of the judiciary, which is one of the components, of the system. What role do you think the judiciary has played in this whole issue? Where do you come in?
You see, the judiciary is responsible. It's the third arm of government. Its fundamental duty or function or role is to adjudicate, and that is to decide as between the complainant, that is the prosecuting agency, and an accused person, who is right. Are the charges, can they be established, or have they been proved? The law says it is to be done according to a certain standard, that is proof beyond reasonable doubt.
Is the judiciary without fault in this whole system?
The judiciary is not without fault. The judiciary has its own problems, but the problems are due to the structure of the law. And there are also its own problems, the quality of the judex, which we'll come to, that is the person who is adjudicating. Has he come to that point being the best person that is supposed to be there. Because if you bring someone who is not the best candidate, who is not qualified, or who is disposed to corruption, then you find that he will be readily available to compromise the interest of the state and the interest of the society, which is giving the person with just deserts. But the way the laws are structured, ranging from bail, we have maybe a section of the law just telling you what the criteria for granting bail is. But the UK has a Bail Act, which goes in detail into how bail ought to be granted and what are the conditions. So you find people making strange and very ridiculous conditions like permanent secretary, traditional ruler, the sum of 100 million. Things that are geared not towards optimizing the criminal justice system, but maybe fulfilling certain fantasies in the heads or certain objectives different from what is to be achieved. Apart from that, what is the length of the trial? There is no law today that enables us to have a continuous trial. You can see the Oscar Pistorius trial from South Africa. From the moment it started, they gave room for everybody to go and do his homework, do your investigation, submit skeleton arguments, submit your case, and it had been studied. But from the day the trial started, it will continue from day to day until you get to a point where you have to break for the other side to bring in their case. We don't have such a system. You have a case come to court, magistrate adjourns, or the judge adjourns for till 6 weeks. He does other cases. The day he sees the accused person, he barely does not even recognize him or have a recollection of what the nuances of the case is. So you have quite a lot of problem associated with the way the law is structured. Happily, we hear that there is an administration of criminal justice bill which ought to have been passed about 11 or 12 years ago, but which unfortunately is still grinding its way slowly through the works in the National Assembly. I have apprehensions that it may not be passed even during the lifespan of this assembly as it has happened. And that continues to put our criminal justice system in that position of decay that it's in, because that, at least, even though I'm not even happy with the bill as it is, but it's a step in the right direction.
Well, there's, you gave the example earlier about how there appears to be no proper template for investigation. And it just triggered a memory in me. I recall seeing a photograph 5 years ago. 5 years ago this month, there was an assassination somewhere in Lagos. And the photograph that was published in the newspaper was that of a policeman who was sweeping the blood away from the premises. And I said to myself, this is part of the evidence. You are obviously sweeping away. I mean, it could be a strand of hair, it could be a blood sample or whatever it is. But that's by the way. Let's talk more now about, again, investigation and also prosecution. As you have recognized very clearly, as it were, ICPC or even EFCC, they are policing agencies, as it were. With the private prosecutor, I know there was a problem that arose during the military era when Gani Fawemi tried to put out and a decree was published, but we have seen the EFCC use private prosecutors. Couldn't we therefore, in tandem with this, elaborate on investigation by way of outsourcing to private competent agencies while we build capacity in the official establishments, and then take that up to prosecution?
Yes, you see, like the Crown Prosecution Service in the UK has a hybrid arrangement whereby it outsources cases to very distinguished Queen's Counsel and legal practitioners, and even to prosecute cases, and also the legal aid also asks senior lawyers and lawyers to defend on a very large scale. But this is done on an agreed template, that there is an agency that prosecutes and they farm out. In Nigeria in those days, it used to be the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions. Oh, that office still exists, but it has lost resourceful and very potent manpower. And you find out now that because of funding, inadequate training, the effects of poor investigation, that department is, in my view, rather moribund. However, what you need at this stage is to revamp the prosecution service. And I think it should also be given legal teeth. That is, by creating a statute for it, such that you know the duties and functions of, like maybe you can call it the Federal Prosecution Service, so that any federal matter, first of all, goes through it for prosecution. If they feel they need the expertise of certain juggernaut in that area of criminal law, they can instruct him and pay for his services. But you must have, as a bedrock, people to do cases in their thousands. Because the problem is that 90% of the real criminals in this country are roaming free and enjoying themselves, such that it is now much more fashionable to be a criminal and to be enjoying yourself around the whole country, because nobody will arrest you, nobody will prosecute you. And so if you have that, then you can enjoy the hybrid. The same thing with the US. The district attorney has a very large department, and it starts from even the equivalent of the local government. And we have always advocated that the local governments, the 774 local governments, must have a legal department each. And that legal department should be able to train at least 10 lawyers each to be able to prosecute cases within that, at that level. But it's absent. So why have a local government when you have no legal structure for it? The same thing with the state. You should have a state prosecuting service that will do that. But a lot of people thrive from the proceeds of crime, including those unfortunately in power. And therefore, there is that reluctance to create a level playing field for the rule of law to prevail in Nigeria. So that no matter how high up you are, you should see yourself as being at risk to go to prison or to be punished for an offense if you dare cross the line.
Okay, the basis, it's a last question. It's a last question, I'm afraid. The basis for this discussion really is the need to sanitize the prisons, to congest the prisons, the Nigerian prison system. And if you take from the statistics we get, over 70% of those there are those who are awaiting trials. And this stems from the fact that majority of them are indigent, who don't have the financial power to access legal representation. Those who even do, are probably, or the lawyers who represent them are those we call, with due respect, the charge and bail lawyers, who, of course, do not present a quality representation in court, and ultimately it affects their trial. Why is it that senior lawyers do not take up some of these cases, but rather take up, cases of politicians, the affluent, and all that? It's a last question for you, I'm afraid.
Yeah, you put a lot of things in it. Put quite a lot of things in it. But then taking it, and as quickly as possible. The prisons are congested because you merge awaiting trial and prisoners together. It's been advocated that keep awaiting trial separately. Have what they call like jails in America, where you put awaiting trial people, and then let that be manned by the sheriff of the court. Secondly, whether lawyers wait until they are briefed, or instructed. So if people don't come, say to me, to ask me to do a case, there's nothing you can do.
Can they afford your cost?
No, we do a lot of pro bono cases. We do cases free for people. It's part of our training. So if people are probably scared to come, there's nothing I can do. And I'm sure it applies to a lot of colleagues. Frankly speaking,
would you take up such cases?
Oh, we do. And that's why we have young lawyers in the office. We'll help them to sharpen their teeth
skills,
with these kind of cases, because we give them the advice, we give them the skills, and we train them with that. And at times when it gets rough, we show up and try and deal with the issues.
Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Leonard Dowd, I'm afraid.
Joseph Dowd.
Joseph Dowd there. You've heard him. If you have a case, you're free to contact him. He has, of course, agreed to look at your case free of charge, or what you call pro bono.
Lawyers do pro bono.
Lawyers do pro bono. No, Claire, just be careful. He wasn't advertising.
So lawyers do, yes. He wasn't advertising. It's something that you give back to the society. Yes. What you have benefited from the society.
Thank you for the correction. And of course, he was a former NBA president, NBA.
Nigerian Bar Association. Not Basketball Association.
Thank you very much.
Okay, you're watching Good Morning Nigeria. It's reaching you live on the network service of the Nigeria Television Authority. We'll take a break.
Excuse me. What people are looking for in Sokoto, we are having Sokoto. Good luck are what every parent and wish is picking. In school, in business, in life. Everybody are looking for good luck. Every country are looking for good luck. In World Cup tournament, good luck. Or Louisa come back to life, good luck. The schools are now bracketed all over to betterment the future of Albageris. Good luck. Or universities are properly funded. Good luck. My damn brothers of the north, are you see what I'm saying? Agriculture are now walk over. That 33 modern dams are ready for farmers. Good luck. Fertilizers are purchased for almost free of charge. FOC. I am talking of power supply. That power reform and make steady supply of light every daily. Let us thank Chineke God. Power good luck. Good luck continue for Nigeria. This message is brought to you courtesy Transformation Ambassadors of Nigeria. Down for one vision, Nigeria.
Nigeria, we the people decree that the power of evil secrecy shall fail.
All Nigerians should understand that a divided Nigeria can only mean catastrophic consequences for the entire black race.
We all African countries count on you, and you are our beacon of hope.
That when Nigeria sneezes, all of us will catch cold.
All of us who look to Nigeria for lessons and inspiration never cease to thank God for this wonderful gift to Africa.
Nigeria enjoys the respect, the admiration, the friendship, and the hope of an entire continent.
The powerhouse of Africa.
Nigeria.
Unite and build Nigeria.
God bless Nigeria.
A message from protectors of Nigerian posterity.
Okay, we are discussing the proposed reforms to the Nigerian criminal justice system, and we're having our second guest. Our first guest who just departed is the learned senior advocate, Mr. Joseph Daudu, former president of the Nigerian Bar Association. And joining us now is Mrs. Joy Bob Manuel, who is the Director General, Legal Aid Council. Mrs. Bob Manuel, welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Good morning, Nigeria.
Okay, let's kick off from the basics. Legal Aid Council, obviously, I mean, it's intended to fund indigent accused persons. But a person is accused because he or she has committed an offense. From your experience as a Legal Aid Council in dealing with persons who are charged with various offenses, do you think that the category of offenses or the nature of offenses for which persons are being tried need to be amended or otherwise repealed?
Thank you very much. From what my learned senior just said, you have heard that a lot of the laws are archaic, but fortunately, we are expecting the administration of criminal justice bill and hope it will be passed. I have more confidence to say I hope it will be passed so that modern trends are already entrenched in that bill. I've seen a copy, but we cannot discuss it because it has not been passed or assented to. So I think the offenses are general worldwide. Stealing is stealing, armed robbery, terrorism, and so on. So there should not be a change. But there are modern ways of dealing with such offenses, and all are entrenched in this new bill. How to quickly the magistrate summary jurisdiction, the one for High Court, how to quickly deal with them. I think our problem is the slow, sluggish way that the criminal justice system has been. And it's, the public should know that one agency affects the other. One agency cannot, on its own, quickly speed up the process or quickly get conviction done. One thing or the other delays it. The learned senior just told you about investigation, and the world is now a global village. We all have to try to reach that international standard. When we go to interagency meetings, we try to encourage ourselves that we cannot wait for the international community to keep on telling us this is the right way. We see trials being done, like the South African trial that my learned senior just alluded to. Why not take it up as Nigerians, be proud of ourselves, and try to change things? Happily, a lot of reforms are going on. And happily, a lot of donor agencies, or what we call development partners, are on ground helping us to develop. As Legal Aid Council, for instance, I'll say that we have a progressive act that was assented to 2011. And in it has the strategies for legal aid provision. And we are trying now to treat the gaps. We are just 273 lawyers and therefore cannot represent 42,000 awaiting trial. We need the cooperation of legal practitioners, civil society groups, and so on. And we are at the verge. In fact, tomorrow I'm starting a workshop sponsored by J4A to train a lot of our lawyers how to go and start collecting data of all those who wish to contribute to legal aid provision. In our act, it says a lawyer should be willing. We cannot force you. Like our learned senior cannot be forced to take up pro bono. But if he so wishes, our section 14 says he should apply to us, we should empanel him and supervise. We give them the cases and we should supervise. It's a mindset. We have been fighting with the seniors to help us. The mindset is, it is a panacea for poverty. Do we do free cases and not pay for our offices, services that we render should be paid for so that we can take care of our family and take care of things? But we want a situation where even corporate companies will not give them briefs if they cannot show that they have taken up pro bono cases. So we are mapping out. We are having a national database of all those who wish to provide legal aid service. So on our own reform is taking place. We have reformed ourselves, but we need help, and the agencies, the donor agencies are helping us. UNODC is taking up a huge chunk of it, and very soon we'll launch the national database of legal aid providers in Nigeria. I think that is one of the ways to go. And in each state, we'll now be able to know who and who will cooperate with us to deal with the number. For instance, Rivers State has 2,500 awaiting trial. And you'll be surprised that during the legal year, the CJ goes and releases up to 800. Go back in 2 months' time, it's still 2,500. It's so amazing. And we just have to deal with this situation.
I was wondering, Claire, just to pick up on the structure of the Legal Aid Council. I mean, 273 lawyers
in 36 states.
In 36 states. That's a very small number. No question about that. Why you have not recruited more lawyers is one question.
Yes.
But perhaps much more interesting to me is you're looking at this at the federal level. Couldn't states, I know that Lagos State, for instance, has the Office of Public Defender. Couldn't states also mirror what the Legal Aid Council is doing and then deal with state offenses?
I'll tell you that Ministry of Justice all over Nigeria have what they call the citizens' right. The difference is that they have not put in funds the way the Lagos State has. It's the same thing as the public defender, but the magnitude that the public defender offices has assumed has not been so in other states. And we hope governors will try to emulate that. The only difference with legal aid is that their jurisdiction is limited to that state. And therefore, if they have cases outside jurisdiction, they refer to us. We have jurisdiction everywhere. We are in all the states in Nigeria.
What is the relationship between the Legal Aid Council and other institutions, of course, in this system?
We are all agents in the criminal justice sector. The police, as you have just heard, must see the offender first and must charge, and then takes to the court. So I've mentioned prosecutor, I've mentioned judiciary, DPP, Ministry of Justice. All must have a say before the defense, before it is given to Legal Aid Council. What we do as an initiative is also to interfere before trial, pre-trial, and this is known as a primary access to justice. Remember, we are grappling with old colonial methods. Even the police, I dare say, does not tell the client his rights, the offender, that you are entitled to legal aid. So we have an MOU with them, and we are trying to change this mindset. We station our lawyers at police station to say you are entitled to a legal practitioner, especially the legal aid. And we hope the police will continue to point to us, at least tell the relatives, please go to the nearest legal aid office in that state. We are in all federal secretariats, state secretariats, or the judiciary. So it's easy for anybody to locate us.
Sorry, Kingsley, quickly, Mrs. Bob Marley, talk to us quickly about the bailing process, because as I speak, some people are taken to are put in cells. Yes, remanded. You understand? And for minor offences, bailable offences, and yet they are denied bail.
That is what I said about the primary access to justice. When we are there, we have not been able to access all police stations. There's funding for it because you have to pay a certain allowance to the coppers we use or the Shopee, and it's not so easy for us. But where we have been allowed to access, what we tell them is that there are offenses that are bailable. Allow the bail immediately. But if you are not there, you may not be able to influence that. And it is until you are told that you should come to represent. So for Nigeria, in our criminal justice system, offenses that do not exceed 3 years, you are entitled to apply for a bail. So bail should be free. Bail should be easy to apply for offenses that do not exceed 3 years if conviction is given. But we also have the discretion of the magistrate or the High Court, because in their own discretion, from what they have heard, they may feel he has no proper address, who will be his shorty, all sorts of factors coming. So that makes it not as easy as what we see when we watch the Western countries. Right away, you are giving bail because you know the system. You can locate people. Everybody's address is known. It is a problem in Nigeria. So sometimes the magistrates are reluctant. We have a lot of interface with them, and they tell us the reasons why. If they suspect or that person has come more than once, they are reluctant to give bail. But right away, we should know that bail is free and that you are entitled to bail if it's a simple offense.
But that's against the fundamental human rights of the person.
Yes, and then we can also ask for that fundamental right, but it has to take 1 year to 2 years. That's another delay.
As a counsel, coming to trial proper, what frustrations do you encounter with magistrates and judges?
I won't say it's with magistrates and judges, because they also cannot do their work if the DPP's advice does not come. We have to track the file. First of all, our first stakeholder is the prison where the remand has taken place. If we do not catch them before trial to know that this offender is about to be taken to court, the next thing is they give us monthly returns, and we know who needs a lawyer in each state. when we now start tracing their legal status, where is the file? And it's likely to be with the police, and from the police to the DPP for advice. That is a major stumbling block for magistrates. So you have some magistrates with 500 cases awaiting trial because there's no advice. You cannot convict if the DPP does not tell you he has a case to answer or not. The Human Rights Commission, for instance, are taking up another angle. The angle is to go after those who delay who delay the awaiting trial person because he may not even have a case to answer, and you have kept him for 5 years, which is very unfortunate.
I'm wondering, but the police also have prosecutorial powers. It's not in all cases that we'll have to refer to the DPP.
The delays they are so complex sometimes. They are complex. We are all trying to get to the root. I'll tell you that we are all trying. We have the meetings. We have the Administrative of Justice Committee meeting headed by CJs of each state. There are problems, but we have agreed there are problems and that we should all work towards reducing it. It's embarrassing to a nation. That is the truth.
Very well. Yeah, that's a good point to thank Mrs. Joy Bob Manuel, Director General of Legal Aid Council, for coming to join us this morning on Good Morning Nigeria. We are discussing reforms to the Nigerian criminal justice system. We'll take a break, and when we return, we'll take our next guest.
Excuse me. What people are looking for in Sokoto, we are having Sokoto. Good luck are what every parent and wishes begin. In school, in business, in life, everybody are looking for good luck. Every country are looking for good luck. In World Cup tournament, good luck. Or Louisa come back to life, good luck. The schools are now breaking all over to betterment the future of Almajiris. Good luck. Or universities are properly funded. Good luck. My damn brothers of the north, are you see what I'm saying? Agriculture are now walk over. That 33 modern dams are ready for farmers. Good luck. Fertilizers are purchased for almost free of charge. FOC. I am talking of power supply. That power reform and make steady supply of light every daily. Let us thank Chineke God for our good luck. Good luck continue for Nigeria. This message is brought to you courtesy Transformation Ambassadors of Nigeria. Done for one vision, Nigeria.
Put a cup of jig in the water, we'll get school uniforms whiter, and it is the tough stain fighter that will get your whites much brighter. Just Jiggins! Pot puree and lemon. Just Jiggins! Hey, you better go get it! Now available in lemon and pot puree fragrances, the newest and freshest way to jig it.
Running on the network service of the NTA from the stable of the NTA Educational Television. This quarter, a wide variety of educational programs. Farm Bus, Tuesdays 5:30 p.m. It is fun-filled and educative for children ages 5 to 11. Walk It Out, Saturdays 9 a.m. Walk It Out is a mathematics quiz program for students of junior secondary schools. Take a Step, Tuesdays 6 p.m. with a repeat broadcast on Sunday at 10 a.m. Take a Step is a general purpose quiz program for students in senior secondary schools. Young Inventors, join the Young Inventors every Mondays at 5:30 p.m. Young Inventors encourages and celebrates creativity, ingenuity, and originality among children and young adults. It's a bouquet of active participation, learning, and being educated in an interesting way.
Thank you for staying with us, and we have joined us our next guest, and he is Professor Tanibi. I deliberately did that to get that name right. Alimeka, Professor of Criminology from University of Jos. Professor Tanibi Alimeka, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Did I get a pass mark?
Yes, you did.
Okay, Prof, taking a look at this from the perspective of criminology, what do you think on a priority scale should be done urgently with regard to reforming Nigeria's criminal justice system?
I think you started this program earlier by asking what is criminal justice system, and there are three words there. There is the criminal, there is justice, there is system. And I think we need to go back, and if you put them together, it simply means a system for giving to the criminal what he deserves. Justice is giving to individual what he or she deserves. And the word system there is very important. I think hitherto we've treated these agencies as individual agencies without remembering that they are a production line. Actually, criminal justice reflects a typical production line where you have the raw material brought in and you process it at various stages. If any of the stages is faulty, then of course we have a faulty system. And the chains, if they are not strong in the way they connect with one another, then you can have a good flow of production. So what we need is first to have a philosophy that binds the various components together. If you ask today, you'll be surprised the nation has no philosophy of criminal justice. What is our criminal justice supposed to do? It's not stated philosophically or policy-wise anywhere. We all just assume. And yet, this is an inheritance of colonial government. Therefore, the philosophy of colonial government is what drives it today that a criminal should be punished. And therefore, from that mindset, when he comes in, he's already presumed guilty, contrary to our assumption that he's not guilty until proven innocent. And we need to have a national philosophy. What do we need to get out of it, out of the justice system? So I think it's first having a system which has a philosophy. The advantage is once you have that philosophy, it guides the police. It gives the police the direction. It guides the DPP the direction. It guides the judge the direction. Today there is no philosophy starting from the police to the judge to the prison. So you find the judge said, I'm sending you to the prison for punishment. He gets to the prison says, you are here for correction. So I think what we need is a system, a sector-wide rethinking and a sector-wide reform, rather than this beat and beat. We are reforming police together. If police is very, as an organization is very efficient, it will bust our prison. Because only a fraction of those who commit crime today are detected and prosecuted, assuming they become very efficient. Our prison will be full, far worse than we're thinking. So I think it's that system, that approach that we need to think very seriously and then begin to deal with the blockades at the various stages.
Could you attempt a philosophical framing of our criminal justice system?
Yes. It does not require inventing. I think there are different philosophies of justice, what you need to do with the criminal. There are countries that decide that they want to punish and give you a death cert. We don't care. We are not rehabilitating you. You commit crime, we give it back to you in your own coin. There are those who are, against, look, for most criminals, we think society contributed to their becoming criminal because we did not give them the right education, we didn't give them the right job, we didn't give them, therefore, they are not totally culpable. What we should do is to find a way of using the criminal justice system, of correcting them and providing them with the kinds of skill that they had missed through the usual marketplace. And that's another philosophy. So the philosophies are already there, but it's a political decision. It's not an academic decision. It is for us to decide we want one, and there are already existing philosophy which you can adapt once we realize the character of our society. But obviously, I think it does make sense not even to come to criminal justice to try to prevent crime. You don't need to spend all your resources reacting to crime when in fact you can prevent crime. And I think that's part of the philosophy I'm talking about. When you make economic decisions, do you ever think of the criminal implication? When you privatize every agency, and then those agencies becomes an asset stripping, people just go there and strip the asset and sell them off. And workers, thousands of workers are lost. Do you consider the criminal implication of that? So for every political action, decision, economic decision you take, you must think of the implication for crime and then try to prevent those kind of decisions taking place. And of course, there will still be some people, every society will have crime. Those that are left after you've tried to prevent, you can then have mechanism for separating, categorizing them in different ways.
Just to follow up on the philosophy, because this is very important, I believe, because it's the underpinning of having an efficient criminal justice system. How will this play out in a multicultural, secular society? I say this, I mean, Nigeria is very clear, for instance. I mean, some states will say, yes, we're enforcing Sharia, others will say, no, it's not Sharia. How will this play out? Do we have a philosophy on a national scale, or we have philosophy that is disaggregated according to ethnic and cultural preferences?
Yes, your philosophy derived from your grand norm. If you take our constitution from the first preamble, it tells you what kind of society we envisage. It then means as long as you agree to be part of this Nigerian territory, you must live by those grand norms. And I think the grand norms are clear. We want to be a democratic society. We want to be a just society. We want to be able to guarantee security and welfare of all citizens. So whatever policy you derive, whether economic, whether political, whether judicial, or whether criminal policy, it must fall into those kinds of framework. So yes, I think every ethnic group, every religion in Nigeria requires justice. The framing of justice may differ from one community, but even when you want to give justice, it means that the Constitution provides the limit of the approaches you can adopt in getting that justice.
Yes, I was also going to ask if there are portions or sections of the Constitution that might impede effective justice delivery.
No, I don't think there are in the Constitution. I think there are in the statutes. Okay. I think there are in the statutes. I think Chapter 4 is almost a takeaway from international protocols and conventions to which you are a party. I think for you to claim that you are a democratic society, a civilized society, you must have Chapter 4 somehow, either in your constitution or as a convention or a tradition of your society. Chapter 2 is an advancement over Chapter 2 because you cannot realize Chapter 4, which is basically fundamental right, and most of the provisions, they actually deal with criminal justice, or the right to be heard, the right to cross-examine witnesses, and the rest of those. Well, the whole due process, they are all contained in most of Chapter 4, but the Chapter 2 contains the socio-economic justice, which if citizens have, the state then have a moral right to punish. One of the crisis we have in Nigeria is that the state actually lacks the morality to punish.
Why do you say that? Because
the worst criminals are never punished. They get to be on the protocol list of the state. And once you have a system that runs with that level of impunity, you don't have moral right to punish.
Does this redound on the enactment of a philosophy of a criminal justice system? How do you balance that?
No, it deals with the content and the quality of our democratic governance. If there is no cost to political decision that leaders or rulers make, then you don't have a democracy. And to that extent, you don't have institutions work the way they should.
Well, obviously, I mean, what you are stating now in the language of the man on the street is reducible to, oh, pen robbers get free or go scot-free, and then the armed robbers, you know, are sent to the stakes. But let's come again now to the practicality of dealing with the challenges in Nigeria's criminal justice system, and which was part of the first question that I posed, namely, in terms of prioritization now, hands-on, what are the key takeaways that we can immediately begin to deal with?
You must deal with corruption. I believe the foundation of all of our problems in this country is corruption. Even when people talk of violence, conflict, and the rest of it, I think they are driven by corruption. When people say, I want somebody from my village to be governor with this, all he's asking is he wants a governor that can dispense favor in form of either financial corruption or nepotism. So we must deal with it, and that is where we are weakest.
Yeah, but corruption itself is an offense. Corruption, you know, erodes the criminal justice system. I mean, that's what we're saying. I mean, it's all part of this canker worm we ought to be dealing with.
Yes, that is. Not long ago, we had a debate as to whether what goes on in Nigeria is stealing or corruption. And these are not the street-men discussion. These are the people with responsibility to stamp out corruption. So corruption, I believe, is such that it's captured virtually every major sector of society. And you need to break the cycle of corruption before you can break the cycle of other areas. And you then ask, how can it be done? I think everyone should realize this system is not sustainable.
Okay, Prof. Mrs. Joy Bob Manuel, Director of Legal Aid Council, talked highly and glowingly about the bill before the National Assembly that's talking about the justice reform, is it Administration of Criminal Justice Reform Bill. Did you share her opinion?
Yeah, there are obviously a lot of improvement that you will get on a formal procedural basis in using that bill if it translates to law. It will provide procedural guidance in many directions that we do not have. Our criminal justice evolved in beats. And what that has tried to do is to put them together and provide some linkages across actors and across agencies. So to that extent, it will help in delivering formal justice.
Okay. Well, would it address the issue of philosophy that you talked about?
Not frontally, but it does show that it is conscious of the fact that you need to get justice as rapidly as possible. Your rights need to be protected in the course of being processed through the factory called criminal justice. I think these are basically the concern of that.
I was just wondering, Prof, when sometimes we outsiders get excited about the swift dispensation of justice, and then the procedure and the composition, those things are often not taken into account. I'll give you a simple example. There was a gentleman called Bernard Madoff. Bernard Madoff was an investment and securities fraudster who stole $65 billion within a matter of months. I mean, he's been in jail. He's been in jail. Yeah. But here we are, certain persons are still being prosecuted, they are being tried. Sometimes the members of the public lose track of whether or not this individual is still facing trial or otherwise. Would you recommend, of course, in the U.S., for instance, the jury system, is available. Would you prescribe that for us, as an option?
No, I think we should be clear of what is happening. Why was it possible for this man's case? I think it was a 2008 case.
Absolutely, yes.
Somewhere around that period, about when the economic meltdown came up.
Yes.
I think we must start with, and I think Daudu made reference to it, the competencies of our various agencies. Take a simple case of driving. If you were driving in the US and got involved in overspeeding, by the time you are stopped by the marshal, there is no argument. His radar had already captured the speed at which you are traveling. All you can do is to come out of the car and kick your tire and say, oh, this is a bad day, I've lost $100. In Nigeria, the man said you were on 120. You said, no, maybe it was windy and you thought, you were hearing the wind sound and you thought I was very fast in my speed.
Your gauge was faulty somehow.
Yes, so it becomes an argument. I think this is bottom line when you're talking about the processing. And I think some institutional re-engineering, for example, police. The era of general duty is over. This question of every policeman being a general duty officer is over. If you enter the police, maybe you have a general duty for 5 years to get used to all the departments. Thereafter, you must specialize. If you are going to be a patrol officer, you are a patrol officer. If you are going to be an intelligence officer, you're going to be an investigator, detective. We must move away from general duty of our security agencies. That's the first key as far as I'm concerned. Expertise, competence then become cumulative. Experience become cumulative. I think that's the beginning. Then the science of the various competencies can then come in. The infrastructure, the facility can then come in to support this one. But we must have a change of attitude that a policeman sent for training on intelligence today, he comes back before he resumes his posted to traffic, highway traffic. And I think that is true for most of the security, except the army, that in some way you come into the divisions, and that for me is key. And I think that's the kind of change that I think can take place tomorrow if we have a president that says, look, I'm reforming the police, and I think this is the way you should go. You might say, what of the people who are there? You conduct aptitude tests. They already have files. There are people who know their capabilities, and you then redistribute and then train rapidly new people to begin to grow along with the agencies.
Professor Tanibi, permit me to interrupt at this point.
Yes.
Professor Tanibi Alimeka is a professor of criminology, University of Jos. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks so much.
You're watching Good Morning Nigeria. We'll take a break.
There is an Ebola virus epidemic in some West African countries. The Nigerian government wants you to be aware and watch out against the spread of Ebola in your community. Help keep our country safe. Refer anybody coming into Nigeria from any other West African country to a hospital for proper medical screening. And watch out for severe cases of fever, headaches, diarrhea, chest and abdominal pain, sore throat, cough, red eyes, and bleeding from the eyes, ears, and nose. Protect yourself. Wash your hands regularly with soap and sanitizer. Avoid contact with the blood, urine, feces, or saliva of animals like bats, monkeys, gorillas, chimpanzees, or infected persons. The Ebola virus is deadly. Don't catch it. Don't spread it. This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information.
A new day is almost a clean slate. The plethora of opportunities offered. The chance to choose.
Investing in agriculture is the key.
Set your agenda. Begin your day. Good morning, Nigeria.
10 minutes, okay. Okay.
All right, and we'll take our next guest. Kisley, it's actually your turn to.
That's correct. Yes. I just wish the camera could get me on now. Our next guest is Professor Yemi Akinsheye George. He's a senior advocate of Nigeria and a member of the Presidential Panel on Implementation of Justice Reform. His bias, of course, is criminal justice. Professor Akinsheye George, I'd like to welcome you to Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you.
Okay, we're talking about how to reform Nigeria's antiquated criminal justice system. Where is your panel on the reform of the justice system, of which the criminal aspect is integral?
Thank you very much. The panel on implementation of justice reform was established by the Honorable Attorney General of the Federation, Mohammed Bello, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, CFR, about 3 years ago. And the panel has been working. I coordinate the subgroup, which we call the Technical Working Group on Administration of Criminal Justice Reform. I coordinate that subgroup, but our overall chairman is Honorable Justice Ishaq Bello, the chief, one of the leading judges of the Federal Capital Territory. At the moment, we have submitted to the Honorable Attorney General what we call the Administration of Criminal Justice Bill, and then the Administration of Criminal Justice Bill has also been forwarded, to the National Assembly. In fact, the House of Representatives has passed it into law. But of course, they need the Senate. So the bill is currently before the Senate. And in fact, recently we held a stakeholders meeting at which all stakeholders, police, Legal Aid Council, Ministry of Justice, prisons, all participated. Civil society, Nigerian Bar Association, everybody is appealing, to the Senate that the bill should be passed. And I'm aware that the Senate is working on it. It is hoped that before the end of the current legislative term, that bill will see the light of day.
What particular sections is it addressing? If you can just give us an insight.
Yeah, you know, as some speakers, the previous speakers have said, the administration of criminal justice is a deliberate intervention by all stakeholders. It's not a one-sided thing. All stakeholders have come together. Of course, the Attorney General initiated the process. You know, the National Assembly, you know, has also bought into it, you know, because we have all been working together. And Professor Alemika talked about policy. This bill begins by spelling out the objectives of the criminal justice system. That has never been done. It recognizes that justice is not a one-way track. It's a minimum of, you know, 3 ends should be addressed. The public, which is society at large, you know, that has been violated when its law is, you know, broken. Then the suspect, you know, who is now no longer to be addressed as an accused person, but to be addressed as a suspect, as a defendant, you know, because there's a presumption of innocence under the Constitution, you know, because the word accused person stigmatizes a suspect, you know, puts him at a disadvantage, contrary to the provisions of the Constitution. Then there's also justice to the victim. You know, in the past, our criminal justice system did not recognize the victim of the offense. Your property is stolen, you are not part of the process. You have no say. You are completely disempowered. But now, this criminal justice system attempts to protect all the segments, all the sectors, you know, from those 3 perspectives of criminal justice system.
Yes. Well, one of the issues that has cropped up in the course of our discussion this morning has to do essentially with the commencement of the process, namely investigation. And as you just heard Professor Alemika say, look, we should now be past the era of general duty officers. After investigation, we talk about the quality of prosecution. And I'm sure you are familiar with, you know, how, with due respect, hopeless some prosecution officers are, you know, when it comes to criminal cases. Is the new bill likely to address these glaring inadequacies in the criminal justice system?
I would say obviously, you know, because this bill has been in the works since 1999. The bill has been in the works, and the current Attorney General, when he came on board, looked at it and said, we don't need to reinvent the wheel. Some work had been done by my predecessors. Let's finish this work, just as he did the Evidence Act. You know, he also gave the country the Evidence Act. You know, the work started before him, but he said, let's get this to a place, a logical conclusion. We have an Evidence Act now that recognizes electronically generated evidence, which was an embarrassing aspect of our you know, evidence system. But now the same thing has begun with the Administration of Criminal Justice Bill. You know, we have looked at the weaknesses over time, over the years, in the last 100 years. What have been the problems? Lack of clarity as regards bail. This issue of investigation is also captured to an extent. Now, when the police takes a case to the magistrate court and gets a remand order, you can no longer forget this, the suspect who is in detention, who is detained pending trial. That policeman is required after 14 days to go back to that court and prosecute. If you cannot prosecute, the magistrate is now empowered to call the case with or without the presence of the police. If someone's a policeman, you brought this man here, we put him on remand on the ground that you are investigating. Now, 14 days, what have you done? Are you ready? If you are not ready, I'm going to discharge this person.
So the holding charge issue is...
It's addressed now.
Okay.
You know, if after 14 days the policeman says, sorry, we are not yet ready, we are still investigating, I give you another 14 days, not more than that. If after the second 14 days not ready to prosecute, unless there's overwhelming evidence and they are sure that they're going to get it, they're able to convince the court. You know, so we have tried to deal with the what we call automatic review mechanisms. And then there is accountability provisions now. You know, magistrates are now accountable for cases, you know, that have led to detention of persons without trial. So if your order has led to a detention, you have a duty to ensure that after a certain number of days, you recall that case. And if you don't recall that case, it becomes a misconduct that can be taken against the magistrate who gave the order. You know, that would reduce the situation where you send people on remand and you forget them there 3, 4, 5 years because they are not able to afford a counsel. You know, and then there are several other protocols now. You know, the reason why the courts are reluctant to grant bail was because when you grant bail, you can't trace, the police cannot trace even the shorty and the suspect will disappear into the system because of weak identity system. You know, this bill says that when a suspect is arrested, you must take the photograph, you must take the fingerprint, you take the address, you know, you document all of these things, and then you feed them into the what we call criminal records registry, which has been introduced in the law, so that there will be statistics, a situation whereby, in the case of one former governor who had been tried and convicted by an area court, and yet it became an issue whether he was the one who was tried and convicted. Eventually, the court said there was no proof that he was the one who was tried and convicted, and he became a governor. You know what became of it? He was later arrested overseas and tried and sentenced to prison. You know, so this bill has deliberately tried to deal with issues. It has introduced restorative justice. You know, it's not just punishment. That's what we call therapeutic effect of criminal justice system. Therapy, treatment, rehabilitation, alternatives to imprisonment. You don't send everybody to prison. First-time offenders who have committed minor offenses, you don't need to send them to prison. They still have an opportunity of being reformed. You know, so you send them to community, you send them to what we call community service, to cut the grass.
I'm just wondering. This is obviously what you're saying speaks to the philosophy.
Yes.
A point that was raised earlier by Professor Alemika. But I'm also just asking. Will this have nationwide application, or are states, will states be at liberty to pick and choose which ones will apply to them? Because, of course, states are also relevant in criminal justice administration.
That's an excellent question. The Administration of Criminal Justice Bill is only being made by National Assembly for the Federal Capital Territory and all federal courts.
Yes.
And you know, there are federal courts all over the and for the police is national. But states are at liberty to incorporate, to domesticate, and make it part of their law. In any case, some states have already gone ahead and done that.
Yes, I understand Lagos.
Lagos passed this bill since 2009, and they have revised it in 2011. Of course, the federal one now has taken advantage of the experience in Lagos, so we have improved on that. Ekiti State, Governor Fayemi Wale Faponda, you know, these are reform-minded individuals. They have passed it, and it's been implemented. Ondo State is in the process. They've taken it to the House of Assembly, you know, and Anambra State has passed it. I think Enugu State is in the process of passing it.
Yes.
So it is. We are very hopeful, and because the states have been involved in the process, it has been an inclusive process.
Okay.
You know, so we are very optimistic that when the National Assembly passes into law, you know, of course, the work starts. We start to train the various stakeholders. We try to build mindset, and then at least we will say that we've taken a step forward in reforming our criminal justice system.
We are also hopeful that the Senate, of course, will pass this bill,
yes.
And looking forward to good times, you know, for the criminal justice system in this country. And Professor Akinseye George, senior advocate of Nigeria, and of course a member of the Criminal Justice Reform Panel.
Implementation of the Justice Reform, yes.
Thank you very much for coming.
My pleasure.
Moving on now, we're looking at developments on the foreign scene. British Prime Minister David Cameron charges the group of G8 major economies on agreement not to pay ransom for hostages. And also in Ukraine, it is said that Ukraine's president had agreed with Russian President Vladimir Putin on steps towards a ceasefire regime. Yemi Ajay has more on the foreign scene.
Hello and welcome. We do have a report which confirms that Israel's latest shelling of the Gaza Strip has killed at least 30 people a day after Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu vowed to keep up pressure on Hamas even after the army completes its core mission of destroying a tunnel network that extends into Israel. One of the strikes on a UN-run school in southern Gaza is said to have killed at least 10 people and wounded about 30 others. Israel media on the 27th day of the fighting reported that most Israeli troops had pulled out of Gaza. A TV video footage showed a column of Israeli tanks and dozens of infantrymen leaving the enclave.
And moving on to entertainment, Nollywood is not just the second largest industry across the globe for nothing. Its statements from practitioners affirm that position. But Ngufan Sha'aj on Arts and Entertainment tells us about one actress who is not shying away from the impossible as her movie takes center stage.
Good
morning, and you're on to arts and entertainment. The 4th annual Music Meets Runway Africa edition has been scheduled to hold in Nigeria later this year. Following its recent endorsement by the Ministry of Tourism, Music Meets Runway will promote tourism in Nigeria and further unite Africa in trade, arts, craft and creativity. Music Meets Runway is an annual event which provides a platform for creative designers to showcase their latest collection, accompanied with live performances from popular musicians.